There you heard straight from the White House, the president saying he's doing everything he can to bring down the price of gas as millions of Americans are struggling to pay bills, to pay for gas, just to get through the day with those prices soaring and impacting many parts of our lives, from travel. He says that he wants to suspend the federal gas tax by 18 cents, asking Congress to act on that. He says it will not hurt the Highway Trust Fund, that extra money to fix our roads and highways, that he can do both at the same time, not hurt that trust fund, while at the same time suspend the federal tax, gas tax that goes towards that fund on a regular basis. Also calling on states to suspend their state gas taxes, while calling out oil companies even tapping into the oil reserve, all at the same time, putting the blame right there once again on Vladimir Putin and this war in Ukraine. Joining me now to discuss, ABC's Alex Prochet and also our business correspondent Deidre Bolton. Deidre, let me just ask you, here we go again, once again, putting all the blame on Putin and the war in Ukraine. But what he has not reiterated is that there were so many things leading up to where we are now, not just this conflict in Ukraine.
Kira, that is such a great point. I am so happy you're making it, because that is very true. I mean, listen, global demand for energy, and of course in the United States included, really changed during the pandemic. So we demanded less energy because we were shut down. We shut down our entire economy. So that means refineries shut down. There were many refineries that were not profitable. Some decided to just cease their business. So this issue, this energy issue, started well before Russia invaded Ukraine. So we are now sort of into the third year of this. And I love that you pointed that context out. It's really important. We also have to remember, you know, there's not been a refinery built in the U.S. for the last 50 years. And just deciding all of a sudden to fire this whole infrastructure back up, it's not as easy as just slipping on a light switch. So we have to be patient, even to a certain extent, with all of these moving parts. So of course the president is speaking about this potential gas tax holiday, federal gas tax holiday, which we know takes about 18.4 cents per gallon off the overall price. But it's really this call to the states, for the state to cut their gas taxes, that would really move the needle for consumers, because that's about 50 cents on the gallon. So that is a much more powerful, if the states take the president's lead, that would have a much more powerful effect on the consumer's bottom line. Kira.
Okay, so Alex, give us a reality check. Will Congress go along with this?
Well, Kira, I think that's a great question. The reality is right now we don't know. And I say we don't know. I mean, usually these suggestions that come out of the Biden White House are at least supported by one party, by Democrats, right? But we know specifically on this idea of eliminating the federal gas tax, that's something that has had both opposition from Democrats and Republicans. So it'll be interesting to see how this is received in Congress. But I mean, as Deirdre was mentioning, I mean, this is huge, and it's become a campaign issue. Gas prices, you see, with this federal gas tax holiday, a little more than 18 cents taken off, and you combine that with states rolling back the state taxes, which is the second action that the president was calling for, and the president's hoping that this would give relief of upwards $1 a gallon, which would be huge in many states. But the third thing that he talked about was calling on companies to refine more oil. And this is something that's been pretty partisan, right? Because I mean, we've talked about, even with the release of strategic oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, how it's been so partisan. Well, Democrats have said that, look, there are 9,000 permits out there for oil companies to drill and refine and make more oil. Republicans have said that we need to have more leases available for these companies, that there's too much red tape in cutting through. And you hear him once again saying that, well, look, America produced 12 million barrels a day, which is the most ever. These oil companies need to start making use of these leases. They need to start increasing production and not buying back company stock. And that's something that is going to be partisan.
So overall, economically talking, Deidre, is this the right move going forward, this plan?
There are many critics, Kira, who say, quite frankly, it isn't. I mean, based on the model of your car, they're saying, okay, even if, to Alex's point, even if this plan passes through Congress, and it seems like there are people on both sides of the aisle who hate it for different reasons, but even if it were to pass, 3 months of tax holidays would probably come down to something like $50 per person. So obviously that's not nothing. But as far as somebody paying for his or her rent, or as far as somebody paying, 20 to 25% more for protein at a grocery store, these Americans are facing 8.6% inflation overall. We know that number well at this point. And so, yes, is $50 over 3 months helpful? Of course it is. But is it going to move the needle for American families? Probably not, Kira.
So, Mary Bruce, I mean, you've been covering this. You're our White House correspondent. Is this just a Band-Aid?
It is. Look, this is a temporary effort to try and provide some relief, but the White House knows that. Officials at the White House openly admit that this is not going to somehow be a quick fix. This isn't going to solve the problem of surging gas prices, but they do hope that it will give Americans a bit of a breather, at least over the summer and through September. But I think you have to be realistic about this. I mean, this is very far from a done deal. The president needs Congress to sign off on this, and right now he is facing opposition from both sides of the aisle. Right, Republicans have argued, some of them, that this is just a political stunt. Some Democrats have raised concerns about whether these savings will actually trickle down to the average American consumer. And they've also raised concerns from members of the president's own party about pulling out what would be roughly $10 billion over these 3 months from funding that would be going to roads and bridges and critical infrastructure projects. So the president has, an uphill battle here if he actually wants to get this through. And I actually asked the White House yesterday, asked the press secretary, has the president been reaching out to members of Congress? Has he been trying to pave the way for this? And it didn't seem that the president had been very involved yet. Of course, he hadn't announced the decision yet, so that could be changing. And Biden also, of course, there mentioned that the energy secretary tomorrow will be meeting with CEOs of energy companies as the president continues to urge oil refineries to step up their capacity. But the president himself has said that he will not be meeting with the CEOs, despite the fact that he keeps making these urgent public pleas to them. He's going to leave that up to his team as well. Kira.
So, Mary, why would Biden push this through when his president at the time, President Obama, called this move a gimmick?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, but I think it's the dire need, right? The president knows that he has to try and do something, or at least show that he is doing everything he can to try and bring down gas prices and to try and bring some relief to Americans as gas hits, nearly $5 a gallon. Yes, it's 18 cents a gallon that you would feel, if you're the average driver, but that does add up. I think in a day, Gas Buddy estimates that about $70 million would be saved by American consumers, so that's not nothing. And the president knows that he has to show the American people that he is trying to do this. What also really struck me about these remarks was the political tone that the president took. The fact that he is calling out Republicans as he reminds Americans of why gas is rising. We've heard that line over and over again from the White House, Putin's price hike, right? That's their hashtag, that's the bumper sticker from the White House. But there is some truth to that, right? The gas prices have risen after we saw Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine. And so the president trying to turn the tables here and point a finger at Republicans and say, are you arguing, Republicans, that this isn't worth it? That even though Americans are having to pay a very real price for this, Biden argues that, and he did warn at the time, that is the cost of trying to defend democracy and freedom in Europe. And he thinks it's well worth it. And he wants Republicans to defend why he argues they don't.
Alex, you spoke with Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm last month. What did she tell you?
Well, Kira, I mean, this is part of that kitchen sink approach. And when we spoke last month, we were actually touring an SPR site where the secretary was defending the administration's approach and releasing this 1 million barrels of oil per day. And this is clearly the second part of that. At the time, and she was mentioning there were a number of other things that they were considering, and the suspension of this federal gas tax. Now we're seeing the president come out and say this. But I think, Mary hit on something that was really, really important in terms of messaging. So much of the messaging that we've seen from the administration thus far has been defending the measures. But now you actually see the president kind of come out on the offense and remind people that, well, look, I mean, Republicans who are talking about, these gas prices and are campaigning this midterm cycle about these gas prices, well, we knew that the prices were going to increase with this Russian war against Ukraine. This is something, one of the few issues that have been has had unanimous support on Capitol Hill for. So are you saying that you wouldn't want to support Ukraine in its efforts against Russia? And that's going to be something that I'd expect the administration, I'd expect a lot of Democrats to really kind of lean into going into the summer.
All right, Alex, Mary, Deidre, thank you all so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.